Good morning. Hi, everybody. My name's John Ciacchio. I am your host for the Private Eye Nightline Show. I have Debbie O'Hara in the studio today from Accredited Investigations. Debbie has years and years of experience, so we're going to ask her to comment on the topics that we're going to be discussing today. This show is going to be about a show that is geared towards custody. Each week we try to come up with a different types of topics and conversations and open discussions regarding the effects of whether it be divorce or child custody, effects on children. So this week we're going to gear towards custody issues, the effects on children, and also on the parents. We have a call-in from Becky, who was a old client of Accredited Investigations from years past, and she's going to comment and hopefully share with us some of the experiences. Becky was a first-time divorce, has 3 children, and I think she'll be able to offer some great insight to what she experienced through the court system and dealing with her own children and her ex-spouse, and of course the attorneys. So Debbie, let's start with you. Welcome to the show again. I know from doing investigations for the last 28 years, we've done a lot of child custody cases involving children and so forth. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about when the callers call you about that, are they talking about putting surveillance on their spouses? What's involved in looking to document a child custody case?
Yes, surveillance is usually involved. Documenting where the children are staying when the other spouse has custody, whether they're in the custody or they're around anyone that they shouldn't be, like another family member, because usually it does happen. Any kind of sexual abuse, child abuse, can usually happen with another family member, believe it or not. Whether the child's going to school, if they're younger children, when they're picked up, are they anchored in car seats? Is the person that's driving smoking while the children are in the car? And are they spending their time with them when they have visitation?
Yeah, that was one issue that was, we used to document all the time. A parent gets the children, and all of a sudden the children are dumped off on a grandparent or a nanny, and the parent is out the door. Also, like you said, is the environment where the children are. Is it a safe environment? Who's in that environment? And then any vices, so whether it be drugs or alcohol. We've documented in the past drinking problems, issues with drugs, and so forth. Another issue is the cohabitation of a living girlfriend or a boyfriend and what their past is. I know.
Yeah, we would recommend doing a criminal background check because you don't know who this person is that these children are around.
That's it. And I think a lot of our clients were people who were not only trying to gather evidence for court, but they wanted to gather, get a comfort level or at least an education to what the environment is like when their children are away from them and in the company of the other parent.
Right, so they can have peace of mind when the children are away. Because a lot of times it's, you get 50-50, and the other spouse will have the children for a week, and then the remaining spouse gets them for the other week. So you want to have peace of mind for that week that the children are being taken care of.
It's been my experience dealing with clients on those issues. A lot of those calls from the clients were driven by emotions at a lot of times, where they were the unknown or the spouse, ex-spouse has an alcohol problem or so forth, and I found that those custody disputes can be really intense because the clients were real emotional, and sometimes they seen things or wanted to act on things that really, like, the courts didn't want to hear, or the attorneys were telling the clients that's not going to be an issue with the court. I know when we would get calls about, our clients complaining about their ex-spouse, there's certain issues that are going to be important to prove in a courtroom, but there's other issues like how many children are there, who's watching the children. They're important to a certain point, but they're not going to move the court, because the court believes both parents in their own rights have the right to have visitation with their children. And I see most courts nowadays wanting to visit a 50-50 split.
Right.
And you really need some strong evidence to sway that court.
Well, especially, say the custody is with the father for 1 week. That's court-ordered visitation time. And like you said, if he's not spending time with these children, he's just picking them up and then dropping them off with the nanny or with a family member, whatever, then the other spouse can fight it. If you're not spending quality time with the children, then I'll take the kids.
I found that, when parents fight for custody or visitation time, the majority of the time they're fighting, some of them have hidden agenda, is to reduce child support or offset child support by the amount of time.
Yes.
Most courts want to appoint a guardian or a primary parent for the day-to-day decision making, but after that divorce is granted and the custody is decided and the court-ordered visitation program's in effect, those two parents have got to stay in communications regarding those children, from doctors to dentists to schooling. It's a very complex time, that just because you have a visitation order in effect doesn't mean that those problems go away. We've seen where clients being divorced 5 years later want to revisit a change in custody or visitation because of either a new person with a questionable background is around their children, or an alcohol problem arose, or it's never ending until those children are adults.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I understand we have Becky on the phone. Becky is an old client of Accredited Investigations. We asked her to call in today, be a part of our show. She's going to help give the listeners an understanding. During her divorce, it was a first-time divorce for her, and she basically, I think, can give the listeners some ideas or what she had to go through, being that she never was divorced before, so this was all new to her. Becky, are you with us today?
Yes, I am.
Okay, how are you
Yes, I am,
today?
John.
Listen, I want to thank you for joining our show. I appreciate it very much. Again, Becky, I told the listeners that you were an old client of Accredited Investigations. If you can, just tell us a little bit about, I understand you had 3 children. It was about, 3 or 4 years ago, you had a real nasty divorce. How long did the divorce last for, roughly?
It took about 4 years to finally sign at least the papers, but then there were still other issues afterwards. The custody became an issue. Unfortunately, we kept fighting over that with the kids, and how different issues coming up and not complying to the court orders, and a lot of emotions.
Yeah, I remember that your case quite well. You had a real nasty divorce. The equitable distribution was a fight in itself, which means the splitting of the marital assets. And then from there, you went into a full-blown custody dispute. I know we got involved to look for behavior patterns to document what was the time when the children was with your ex-spouse, how was it being spent, and everything. I remember it was an emotional time for you. When you got into the custody dispute issues and everything, emotionally, by that time, after the divorce and the equitable distribution fights, emotionally, you were drained.
Yes, I was drained. Yeah, emotionally, financially, physically, spiritually. It hits every part of you. You first of all, in my case, this was not me wanting to get out of the marriage. So I'm in that denial or blindsided and trying to pull myself together there. And then after you get after that denial, you start getting the uncertainty and what's the future going to be, and your financial security is not there anymore. Where am I going to be living? And how about the children? How are they going to handle this? The stigma. I mean, even though it's 50% of divorces, marriages end in divorce, the school that they go to, it's not 50%. People don't talk about it, or they stay together. And I know I was embarrassed even to mention I was separated, and the kids still do not like to say their parents are divorced.
That's a good point. And you never experienced this. This was your first divorce that you went through. Is this? Did you have any idea? I mean, years later now looking, did you have any idea the turmoil and the length of time and the financial monies and the emotions? Did you have any idea what you were involved in with this?
No, I had no idea. In the beginning, I somewhat stayed placid. I really didn't. I was still trying to fix our marriage. I still thought there was hope. I thought I had to give it a chance. But the others, my ex, did not. Like, he sometimes had some, maybe, but it was like a tug of war at times, with my heart. Like, sometimes it just was mind games. And I had to finally accept it because, all that time you get the hopes up and then the rug's pulled underneath your feet again. And you're falling. And then you're not, and then you're back to, ground zero again and starting to build yourself in confidence and self-esteem back up again. And the money, yeah, definitely. That's a lot.
I can
I would
tell
never
you.
go that long.
I can tell you, I remember, and just the issues with your children, and when you would have to say goodbye to them, how they would react. What we're going to do, Becky, is we're going to take a break here. They're telling me we're going to go to station break here, and when we come back, we'll talk about the effects for you and your children during that whole custody dispute. And Debbie, maybe you can join in and tell us what some of the clients that you're dealing with and educate our listeners. Mm-hmm. So we're going to take a break now. Again, this is John Ciancio from the Private Eye Nightline. We have Debbie O'Hara from Accredited Investigations in the studio. And when we come back, we'll continue our talk with Becky. Thank you.
Accredited Investigations Incorporated offers a wide array of investigative services to law firms, insurance companies, individuals, private organizations, and corporations. Our goal is to reach the case objectives and resolve the client's issues as quickly and cost-effectively as possible. Local investigative services include identity, wrongful death, drug, alcohol, and abuse, and divorce, support, custody, and family investigations. For more information, call or click today. Accredited Investigations, when you need to know.
Accredited Investigations Incorporated. Professional, licensed private detectives with over 28 years of experience, providing comprehensive nationwide services. Our extensive and diverse team offers discreet and confidential consultations. Our state-of-the-art technology and investigative resources allow us to stay in front of other investigative companies. We welcome the opportunity to earn your trust and deliver you the best service in the industry. Call Accredited Investigations Incorporated at 866-821-5258.
You're listening to the Private Eye Nightline with host John Ciaccio. To ask a question or express a concern about today's program, please call toll-free 1-866-472-5788, 1-866-472-5788. You may also send an email to info@pinightline.com. Now, back to the show.
Okay, thank you to our listeners for standing by. Again, this is the Private Eye Nightline Show. My name is John Ciancio. I am your host today. Debbie O'Hara from Accredited Investigations is in the studio.
Hi, everybody.
And we have Becky on the phone as well. Becky, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Becky.
Hi. Hi, Debbie.
All right. So, Becky, right prior to the break, we were talking about the custody disputes. And you were telling our listeners about the financial, the emotional drain. Let's talk about a little more about what you were going through and what your children were going through regarding, on the custody disputes, like visitation, saying goodbye, and the effects on them, and how you had to deal with those effects. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the hardest thing in the beginning about giving up your kids during
The hardest
break?
thing was when they were going overnight, and it might have been like over a weekend. At first, it was not. They were not going with their father because he didn't have a place to have them sleep over, an adequate sleeping environment. And then what I did do, because it was going to be very tight sleep quarters, to leave the house so the kids could remain in the house and it'd be less traumatic to them. But that was hard for me because I left the house. I mean, I was doing it for my kids, but it was the first time I was leaving them, and it was hard. I just cried the whole weekend. And then it took a while. I only did it one or two times, and after that, they did go to their father's place, and it was hard because my life was around my kids and my husband, and that family. So to just adjust to that was hard. You feel a big void. You have responsibility, accountability, and also you're still dealing with my emotions, the kids' emotions, trying to understand what's going on, and you're trying to attend to their needs. And yet you have to be strong and heal yourself in order to help them. And it was hard. That was very hard.
Yeah, if I remember your case, and this is what a lot of people don't understand about the courts. At one time, you had those kids almost 24/7, and then you had to deal with the courts and the rights of the other parent, your ex-spouse, taking the kids more and more time. So you went from majority time of having your kids. Well, how was it on the kids for when you were getting ready to go to dad's?
Well, especially the first year, the youngest, she knew that because we had a van and we would flip cars when he had the kids because they were young and still in car seats. That the youngest one, when she saw her father getting behind the wheel, she knew that meant she's going away from me overnight, and she just would cling to me, hold on to me. She didn't want to let go. It was that. How do you pull a child away from you to go into a car seat when she's? How do you explain to a 4-year-old that? I don't. You'll see me in a couple days, and they don't know the time and the way we know time, and still, even that time for an adult is a long time. And then came to things where there were social activities. They missed out on some of those activities. We weren't in the same township, so it was a distance between where he was staying and where I was living, and so they missed out on different activities with their friends and school events. And then there's also being in the car back and forth. I felt bad for them, and the homework, trying to get that going and up to top, on top of it, and making sure that there's not assignments slipping. And I took on that responsibility. I didn't want to depend on their father. I mean, if he did it fine. But if he didn't, I accepted it. And just felt for them, that I needed to do it for them. They shouldn't be getting the punishment for having to go to a different surrounding on the weekend. And then also comes to where they forgot things. They might have forgot things at their father's house, and then the next morning they don't have these. They wear uniforms, so their shoes might have been left there, and then you're too far away to go get them for them. And that was like more of an inconvenience, but for them, they were embarrassed. They had to go to school without maybe the right shoes.
During your break from your children, and then when you would get your children back, how long was the adjustment to get comfortable with the idea that your kids are not going to be with you for the next several days, and then when you do get the kids back, how quick can you adjust to that? Because it's never ending, and even to this day, correct me if I'm wrong, Becky, you and your ex-spouse are splitting those kids pretty much 50% of the time.
Yes.
How do you adjust on that?
It took a while for me personally. It took me a year to adjust, to feel content, and maybe not say much like to look forward to something to do that weekend for myself. It took a whole year. But then when you had the vacations, we were doing every other week, and that hurt. I just felt very bad for that because most of the time they were stuck in the house when they were with their father while he worked, and did not go outside and play, and not got with friends during the summer. I felt so much for them. It just felt like they didn't have a voice. That was something. They accepted it, and that's the thing. I think they didn't know any better to say anything. And
Becky, how long, if at all, did it take the children to get adjusted to the whole setup?
I think it took them. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good question, Debbie. Debbie was asking. It's one thing for parents as adults to adjust, but with the kids, I know you at times you had your hands full. I think you were proactive. And you set up some counseling for your kids. How long did it take for them to adjust to this?
They say kids are resilient, and actually they adjusted faster than I did. And I would say once, I guess, plus side for them was that we did have a house down the shore, and so when their father had them, they were at the shore. So they kept a routine, even though mommy wasn't there or daddy wasn't there. It still was familiar routines that they had done in the summertime, and they adjusted that way. If there were things going on, say a concert that they might want to go to, he did take them to that. He did find some kind of activity. So they were looking forward to something when they were with him. But I would say, except for the youngest one, who I think, again, took 6 months, I say the other ones, maybe as soon as they were going to the shore, it didn't seem that it bothered them as much. And they were sad, but I think they accepted it. They still want us together.
Well, that and that's, I think, part of the counseling you set up, tried to help them through that. Not only you as their mommy, but also having a counselor. Was it a individual counselor or school counseling? What did you do to get them some help?
I did both. Right away when the separation happened, I quickly got them to see the school counselor. And again, with this case, you have to get both parents when you're separated and divorced, both signatures of both parents. And I had the older ones were in it, but the young one wasn't. Too young to start. Wasn't in school. And then after that, I just start with a family therapist. But that becomes costly too, because I had a hard time finding anybody who was open to new patients under our insurance plan. But I decided to just pay out of pocket so they could have a voice and to express their feelings. And there was resistance. There was, nobody really wants I guess, talk about it, and they really didn't want to. I think it hurt too much. But they did, and I continue off and on to do the therapy. And there were times where I had problems getting a signature from their father, who felt they didn't need counseling and they don't want to go to counseling. And I strongly, I already had people recommending that they do. Even their family physician recommended it. And I still was meeting obstacles in getting that to be signed and his consent. One other thing I did besides counseling, I tried to see who was also going through this, of their friends or like other students, and kind of like point it out to them so they wouldn't feel so, the only one out there going through this, that, they're so different from the rest of the students. And tried to have them, if they were old enough, to maybe get together. Maybe not talk about it, but, they could feel there's something, common they could share. And also maybe any family or friends that had already gone through a divorce. I somewhat, point that out. So again, not to feel so left, out there. That helped.
Yeah, I remember. You have a big family, so you had a great support group with your parents and your brothers and sisters and their families, and I guess that helps too when you have a strong family to support not only the issues that you had to contend with, but also your kids. Because if I remember correctly, your kids really. You created a great environment. If I remember correctly, you were telling me you were getting their cousins over around them a lot and stuff.
Right. And, my parents were here constantly in the beginning because to support me and to help me out and to, help the kids emotionally and, when I was just myself, just like just in denial. But to also to just give them some normalcy and give them, the family and, there's still togetherness and it's still, this is not going to change, your relationship with your grandparents and your cousins and aunt and uncles. And also goes on the other side, too, to encourage that. Because even though mommy and daddy are not together, it doesn't mean you're separated from the families.
Yeah, that's good stuff for our listeners to hear. Especially with everything that you've been through, especially it was new to you and you had no idea. We're going to talk more about this once they're telling me we're going to go to station break again. So, Becky, I'm going to ask you to stand by. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Debbie a little bit more and let her share with some of the cases that she's dealing with, the custody dispute issues with some of her clients. Again, my name's John Ciancio. You are listening to the Private Eye Nightline Show, and we're going to be back right after station break. Thank you.
Accredited Investigations Incorporated offers a wide array of investigative services to law firms, insurance companies, individuals, private organizations, and corporations. Our goal is to reach the case objectives and resolve the client's issues as quickly and cost-effectively as possible. Local investigative services include identity, wrongful death, drug, alcohol, and abuse, and divorce, support, custody, and family investigations. For more information, call or click today. Accredited Investigations, when you need to know.
Accredited Investigations Incorporated. Professional, licensed private detectives with over 28 years of experience, providing comprehensive nationwide services. Our extensive and diverse team offers discreet and confidential consultations. Our state-of-the-art technology and investigative resources allow us to stay in front of other investigative companies. We welcome the opportunity to earn your trust and deliver you the best service in the industry. Call Accredited Investigations Incorporated at 866-821-5258.
You're listening to the Private Eye Nightline with host John Ciaccio. To ask a question or express a concern about today's program, please call toll-free 1-866-472-5788, 1-866-472-5788. You may also send an email to info@pinightline.com. Now, back to the show.
Hello, everybody. Again, hi, my name's John Ciacchio. I am your host for the Private Eye Nightline, and we have Debbie from Accredited Investigations in our studio, and we have Becky, a old client from Accredited Investigations, on the line as well. Becky, thanks for standing by. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Prior to break, you were talking about some of the experiences and how you rallied the troops, your family, around your kids to keep them, in the norm, a stable environment for them. And I remember sometimes we would talk. How is it now with your ex-spouse? I remember for a time there, you two would not even communicate, and if anything, it was like passing notes back and forth through children. Did that improve, or is it the same way? And what effects on you and the effects on your children?
It has not improved. It just seems it went even further downhill, and we still communicate through our kids or through email or text, and it puts the kids in the middle. Because especially if they're delivering the message, it's to kill the messenger, and I feel that there are times where there's a reaction on both parts too. And you don't want to, but you hear something that you don't like hearing from the message, and you have to take a deep breath. Don't expose your emotions in front of your kids. And I'm working on that, and sometimes I'm this is the way it is. But I don't know if he is, and that's why, for me, I feel bad for them. Maybe they're used to that, and that's the way they're used to being talked to. But I don't. But we feel more for your kids than probably they are hurting. But I can't. I don't know why. I'm hoping someday that after there's nothing to fight over, it won't be like this.
The kids, do they vocalize to you? Do they tell you how they feel deep down, or do they hide their emotions?
Both. Sometimes if they don't express it, I see it in the body language. Or the way they maybe respond to a question, or being like, "Do you want to do this? You want to go here, or something?" And when they're not sure, I'm like, "Why are they hesitant?" And I do see, especially when you have a time when they're not under your immediate view 24/7, and when they come, because it's like a 50-50 custody issue, right. You do start recognizing behavior changes more so. You're attuned to it. Even on the phone when you're talking to them, I can tell. And I'm going to say 99% of the time, I am right. There is something going on. Or they're stressing out, or they're not happy about. It might not be something to go to court about, or it's just something maybe to address with them, and I guess either relieve their fears or acknowledge what they're thinking. It's draining on me, of course, because I wish I could keep them from having this ongoing pain and feeling this stress.
See, that's the sad thing about child custody. It's the children that suffer the most.
Mm-hmm.
I think with the kids, their exposures, they're always changing, as with life, but some of the obstacles that are put in the kids' ways could be, when a boyfriend or girlfriend move into the home or around the children more, especially if they haven't resolved or come to terms with their parents getting a divorce. That can just add more fuel to the fire, drain the emotions of the children. And I know that's one of the things that we were focusing on your case at the time, was to look to see, was there outside people, and your kids were giving you feedback and were upset about it. That had to be a whole different world of emotions you had to deal with, correct?
Yes. Yes. And a lot of times these were issues that were upsetting the kids, yet the courts could do nothing about it. I would say something to the lawyers, and it wasn't an issue to bring to court, unfortunately. It was like poor decision on his part, maybe, but not a custody issue. Some of them may be, well, first of all, it is going to be happening. Someone's going to either be with another person, and the kids are not going to accept that person because they just, mommy and daddy should be together. But it's another thing where if they're expressing that I don't want, that other person at like a sports event or something, I think you should acknowledge that and respect that, because that's their activity.
Yeah.
It's their time.
You always had a saying, it's not my time or your ex-spouse's time, it's the children's time.
Right.
And I remember that statement. Actually, I use that, Becky, when I consult with clients a lot today, to concentrate on children's time. I remember some of the issues. One of the women your ex-spouse brought into the home for weeks at a time was someone out of the country. Had no background or understanding who that person was. In fact, there were some sensitive issues. The woman was actually using or wearing some of your daughter's clothing and so forth. And that had to be a really tough time to get your kids through it.
Yes, because they be like, I guess, personal toiletries that they noticed were moved, or they could tell that something was being used, and it was not when they were in that house at the time, but when they come back to that their father's house, like they will see things have changed. This piece of clothing was not where it used to be, and again, it's personal to them. It's like someone taking your personal belongings and using without permission. And we're teaching them to respect personal belongings, whereas then you have an adult doing this. And so how do you explain that to a child? And who can't maybe express that to their parent? To feel like their side's not going to be seen. It's still ongoing. That is a frustrating issue. I think as they get, I guess, older, they'll be maybe more vocal. But it's a shame they have to hide things, so someone's not using it.
When
you're comfortable in both residents, where they may be.
When your ex would have the woman come around your children, their time was interrupted too, if I remember correctly. And the visitation was either shortened or your children went to other family members so he could spend his time with these women, correct?
Correct, yes, right. There was a situation where he left them in harm's way, and I caught wind of it, and I had to notify the family member who's actually, they were left with to learn, where they were, and that this is not good, because I could not get a hold of him. And then, but again, going through the courts, maybe later up to be an issue, but not to change custody, to full time for me. Just that poor, again, they turn around saying that's poor parenting. But I guess you keep them. Yeah, but I'm not even care about getting my point is just my kids right now. It's like their safety is more important to me than trying to win a custody where I get them 100%. My concern is just that they're okay. They don't get hurt or something fatal happens. And that's frustrating when you have to deal with somebody who doesn't see it your way.
Not only their safety, but their emotional well-being as well. Because I remember many times, once kids came back to you, you had to do, I hate to use this word when it comes to children, but you had to do damage control. You had to reposition your kids to get them in a good environment, both physically but mentally as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Each of them had like something at one point needed to be addressed, and recently there was one who just seemed she was clinging and just holding to me, and I didn't know what was going on. And you just, try, and then they don't want to talk. They're afraid they're going to, and you don't want to push because you don't want them to feel like they have to take sides.
Yeah,
but you want to be available.
I can tell you, it doesn't help, especially when both ex-spouses are not communicating, and that should be paramount. They're telling me, Becky and Debbie, they're telling me we're going to station break again. So I'm going to ask you to stand by. Listeners, we'll be back right after the station break. Again, you're listening to the Private Eye Nightline. Debbie O'Hara is in the studio from Accredited Investigations, and I am John Ciacchio, your host. We'll be back soon.
Accredited Investigations Incorporated offers a wide array of investigative services to law firms, insurance companies, individuals, private organizations, and corporations. Our goal is to reach the case objectives and resolve the client's issues as quickly and cost-effectively as possible. Local investigative services include identity, wrongful death, drug, alcohol, and abuse, and divorce, support, custody, and family investigations. For more information, call or click today. Accredited Investigations, when you need to know.
Accredited Investigations Incorporated. Professional, licensed private detectives with over 28 years of experience, providing comprehensive nationwide services. Our extensive and diverse team offers discreet and confidential consultations. Our state-of-the-art technology and investigative resources allow us to stay in front of other investigative companies. We welcome the opportunity to earn your trust and deliver you the best service in the industry. Call Accredited Investigations Incorporated at 866-821-5258.
You're listening to the Private Eye Nightline with host John Ciacchio. To ask a question or express a concern about today's program, please call toll-free 1-866-472-5788, 1-866-472-5788. You may also send an email to info@pinightline.com. Now, back to the show.
Okay, thank you to our listeners for standing by. We're back live again, and Becky is a old client of Accredited Investigations. We have her on the phone, and again, Becky, I want to thank you for taking the time you have afforded us to call in and talk about, which I can tell is still some raw emotional concerns that you're trying to deal with day in and day out, even with your divorce being 3 or 4 years ago.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Let me ask you this. How, after 3 or 4 years, and you're getting your kids, 50% of the time, how can you survive this and your kids survive this when you don't even talk to your spouse? Your ex-spouse?
Well, you try to, I guess, it helps you doing this by talking to the kids and explaining that, you wish, and not so much putting the blame on the other person, but just saying, that we both should be communicating, and I apologize for it. That is not their fault. This is not their fault, and you wish you could change things. And, they at this point it's accepted. There's times where they'll say to one or the other, well, you tell him, or you tell her. So I guess as they get their older, they're starting to speak up and tell them how they feel to each of us. So that's one thing, just trying to be tuned to their feelings. And maybe it is okay to tell me a message. Most of the time, I might be getting a text message from the kids that he's asking them to send, or vice versa. So, in this day and age, I love doing the texting. But, and also, if you can, I try not to. You try not to do it that way. I try to communicate, even though it might be through an email or text. I try not to get them involved.
Yeah, That's
you
got
can't
to be
control, you have
real
to understand,
hard.
you can't control the other person. That's the other thing. You cannot change that other person. You can't control the other person. So, and you have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's
Because
a
emotions
shame
will try.
because I can tell you firsthand, I have many clients call or I talk to years later, and they'll say, "No, everything's great. We became friends, and we had the children, that we're focusing on together, and sometimes I hear this a lot. We were better being friends than we were being married to each other." And to incorporate that when it comes to kids, it's a healthy attitude. But it's a shame because it's either one way or the other. It's either where there's a total distance, refusal to communicate over children's issues, or ex-spouses working together. Debbie, I know you have one case going on right now that the father and the mother are slugging it out, where there's court action and
Yeah.
everything. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit
Yeah,
about that?
the father has joint shared custody with his ex-wife, and he is told absolutely nothing. Where these children, who's watching the children, if the nanny had a background check, where the children are. The children have had, few injuries. He's told nothing about it. He hears through the grapevine if one of the children end up going to the hospital. He's totally not informed on any of these children, and it's killing him. It's really killing him.
And that's where a private investigator really can help the client or to comfort their fears or educate them to their fears, so they can move to a court and file a motion to change a visitation order. But for a private investigator, it does take surveillance, right? That's
It does, and we've been doing surveillance for a while now, and we're getting pretty close because the children are not supposed to be around a particular family member, and we've documented it 2 or 3 times so far. So that's going to give him a good leg to stand on when he goes into the courtroom.
Another thing is the mother is a professional and works a lot, and majority of the time is with nannies and not with the mother. Documenting that, a private investigator documenting that is great tools to educate the courts, because when all said and done, at the end of the day, it's not only who the stronger parent will be for those children, but who and where are those kids spending their time, and it better be with the parent.
Well, that's it. When the mother has her visitation time, like say for that week, and she's out working and she's leaving the children with nannies, that's good time that the children could be spending with the father. So it's all in the benefit of the child. If you're not spending the time that you're allocated to have with these children, then let the other parent take charge. I'd rather my children be with a parent than with a nanny.
Yeah, and I can tell you, through different states, that's a tough fight in a courtroom. And Becky, you know that firsthand, right?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And it's costly, besides emotionally.
Yeah, I mean, you went through a couple attorneys, and the attorneys, they put more fight into the equitable distribution and the assets than they did on the custody issues.
Yes. And there were times where I wanted them to be focusing on the kids and saying to them, where's their rights? Where do they have a voice? And there were times I just got pushed aside. Let's just get finishing up this, equitable distribution, then we'll go to that issue. And I'm like, this is time. I mean, this is like time sensitive. These are children, or these are human beings. That's just an obstacle. That's only money. That's only material stuff. This is a person.
It's like they're not giving the children a right to speak.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it's been my experience that unless there's very sensitive issues, okay, alcohol abuse, a anger issues where you can ask a court to order anger management, an alcohol drug program testing, but the emotional side, I think the court's very slow, and And Becky, you've witnessed that firsthand. They don't want to hear those kind of issues, and it's hard when your own attorney is telling you, they can't move on that.
No, right. And then there's times where I've been told one thing, and then later on in the line, they do a 180 and say something else that is not what they told me the first time. And there's times where I've been told by getting legal or pushed to do something or consent to something or agree to something, and then for some reason we had to go to court for a contempt issue, and the judge is saying, "Why did you agree to this?" And I'm thinking, my lawyer pushed me to it to agree to something that I did not want to do. That's frustrating because it doesn't seem there's consistency.
Yeah, I mean it's like a very long battles. You're fighting battles and battles, and there's no winner. Like you said, financially, emotionally, there are no winners. And I can even say, it's okay. It's okay for the parents, okay, but it's not okay for the kids. And that's where those are the ones that truly get hurt. And, unless you are very wealthy and you can afford attorneys for your own children, they call it guardian ad litem to speak up, but even real issues. Well, again, Becky, look, I need to thank you. I want to thank you for calling in today. They're telling me we have to wrap up the show. So, Becky, it was great talking to you again. I wish you a lot of luck and continued working out these differences with your ex-husband regarding your children. So thank you, Becky. Debbie, I want to thank you for joining us again. As usual, you gave us great insight. Next week, listeners, we're going to do a show on the effects of the exposures children now face, whether it be on the internet or in the communities. It's a lot different from when we were kids. So it should be a really good show to educate your listeners, for any listeners who have children, to what is going on and some insight and some signs what to look for. So again, my name's John Ciacchio. You've been listening to the Private Eye Nightline Show. Again, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next Friday, 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, thank you. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you after July 4th. Alrighty, take care now.
Thanks again for joining us this week. The Private Eye Nightline will be back next Friday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Variety Channel. John Ciacchio hopes to have you tune in again next week.